Welcome to Crypto Rosetta. My name is Savage. Today we're going to be having a look at BTC. Let's get into the charts and see what's going on. Pretty much most of the ideas that we talked about in yesterday's video are still alive. We're going to go over some of them now. So looking at this potential, we could have a wave 2 in play. This is still valid for as long as we hold this 29503. But what we'd be looking for is we'd have sooner invalidation for this, in my opinion, because effectively what we're looking for is this is a 1-2 here. Invalidation of this comes by crossing 29701. Now the key thing here is that if we're looking for this idea of a direct push to the upside here, our 1618 is a 32852, and that is what we are looking for as a target. We have held this support range here, and if we are looking at this move extending out, this is how we would be looking at it. So given the current structure that we have here, what we can argue is two things. So we could argue that within here we have this as 1-2, and then we're looking for that potential of another 1-2. Now the reason I'm not too keen on this idea, and I'm favoring that idea of more of the bearish count, or looking at this as a corrective move rather, is because we would have to count this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this whole move here would be a diagonal pattern into this point here, and then we would have this as a third, fourth, and a fifth. So it is technically possible. Now the other issue with this is that if we come in here, we'd have to count this as a wave 2. Now if this is the case, effectively what we'd have to then argue is that this is just ABC, but there is a way of counting this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or alternatively 1, 2, this becomes third, we have a really short fourth and a fifth wave. So there's a couple of ways of looking at this, but it could actually just be a 3-wave move down. So because of that fact, just being mindful that because we actually held this zone of this 30,181, I want to see if we start to develop something here where this actually becomes a 1, 2, we get another 1, 2 here, and then we start to push up in an impulsive way, looking to break to the upside. Now there's two target areas that I'm going to be keeping an eye on here. That would be this 31,300 level at our 1-to-1. If we look to push up higher here, however, what we do have is this 32k as our 1618. So if we see price starting to get excited to the upside here and we get a 5-wave move up towards this 32k region, what we could actually then see is an additional fourth and a fifth here, which would look to push us up towards this zone here of this 32,444 to this 32,170 level, then be looking for an additional fourth and a fifth, which could look to push us up into these higher ranges here. Now if we are looking at this in this way, it is important that we do not cross this 29,950. If we cross that, that makes this whole count less likely, in my opinion. Now it is possible that within the structure we could see something like this, where this becomes A, we get B, and then we get a C, which doesn't invalidate by crossing this line, and we still come back down here and actually look to push this zone one more time, this 30,181. But really, once we start to cross this 29,950, it becomes less likely that this actually is in play as a impulse, in my opinion. So what could it be if that doesn't actually play out? So the other way we were discussing this is looking at this move as a completed structure over here, where we're saying that actually we completed into this high. Now if this is the case, what we are looking for is the potential to come back down deeper here, ideally between this 28,693 to this 26,084. So because of that reason, we need to be on the lookout that this correction could be incomplete, and that we could still be looking to move down here. So looking at this, we were talking about a couple of options here. So the idea that this is still in a B wave, this is technically still possible here, where we could be saying that we are still within this bigger B wave here, and what we're looking for as a target potentially would be this 31,906 to this 32,202. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on this because it is possible that this B wave is still in play here. Now one thing I want to talk about here is the time relationship. So if we are looking at this as an A, looking at this as a B, we have actually come here past this 1.382. Now I wouldn't want to see this get too much bigger than this 1.618. So effectively what I'd like to see here is, if this is going to be a B wave, potentially we look for another 3-wave move to the upside here, and then we look to actually complete this. Now we do have these swing highs up here towards this 31,765 and this 32,400 level. So going to be keeping an eye on this whole little range here as a possible zone that we could see price move into if we do continue up. So if we are looking at that possibility of continuing up, I was looking at this as a potential A, B, and a C to the upside here, but it is also possible this is W, X, and Y. So with that being said, what we need to be cautious of, however, is we've already come up to this 0.618 of this A wave here. So if this is the case, you know, this is actually a minimum requirement. So this could actually be W, X, Y, and we complete here, and then we start to break down from this point. So need to be careful. As long as this high holds over here, that potentially we could start to see price break to the downside. We're going to go over those counts in a second, but alternatively, you know, as long as we hold this low here, potentially we could see price move to the upside here, looking for this higher target of this 1-to-1, which is here at this 31,602. So this would align with coming back up here into this higher zone, and that would tie in with coming back up into some of these higher levels, particularly this 1236 would bring us back into this 32k region, which would be right here in a typical B wave rejection area of a flat. So going to be keeping an eye on those levels if price does actually look to move up into that zone. Now, if we are arguing that we are having a Y wave here, where this is W, X, and Y, what we could see is something along these lines. Now, in yesterday's video, what we were talking about here was the potential that we could see A, B, and C, but we're also saying, you know, we need to respect the fact that we've come down into this golden pocket. This move has done enough here that it could be completed. So within this structure, we actually did come up to this 1.382, which is sitting here towards this 30,997. And what I was talking about yesterday is that possibility of looking to come back towards the central channel line here. So we did actually do that, and now we've rejected to the downside. Like I said, potentially we can count this as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the downside, but we can also potentially just count this as a 3-wave structure. So what I'm leaning more towards is that this is a 5-wave move here, and we're going to see continuation down. But what I also want to just talk about here is that if this is a Y wave, this could also get more complex here. So we need to just be careful that within this structure, I'm actually going to delete this target box because we don't need it anymore. What we could actually have is that this is a 3-wave move up. We get A, B, and C as a 3-wave move to the downside. And then we still see something like this as a 5-wave structure to the upside. So this would be looking to actually come back down here, potentially sweep some of these lows here, and then look for this C wave to the upside. On the other hand, we have already actually come down into this golden pocket, which is this 30,207 to this 30,164 already within this move. So if we do start to break back to the upside here, and we take this high, what I would then be looking for would be this potential of this 1-to-1 to this 1,236, which would bring us up towards this zone here of this 31,912. So this would be looking at this idea that this is actually A, B, and then C to the upside. So going to be keeping an eye on this. If we do see this start to develop in a 5-wave structure, something like this, and we push up into these higher ranges, this could be potentially a zone we could look to turn around. And this would all align with that idea of that bigger B wave to the upside, looking for this area here of this 31,602 as a possible target area. So that's looking at that in that corrective way. Now, we also need to just be aware that because we have this move up here, this is also enough to be a completed corrective move. So because of that fact, we need to be careful, because there are ways of counting this where we could actually be looking for a direct break to the downside, and that would be looking for something more along these lines here, where we are looking at this move here as a B wave. So there's a couple of ways we can still argue that this is actually within a corrective move here. And what we are saying is that this could be W, X, and this could be A, B, and C. So it's going to be very important to see what happens here. If we do continue to the downside and we get 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, potentially what we could be looking for would be a move down towards this zone of this 29,384 to this 29,451. If we are looking to extend, we do actually also have other targets here. This 1236 of the W wave is at the 29k, 1382 at this 28746. So this would be looking for this idea of a direct breakdown. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens off of this high here, because we could still be looking for some of these ideas to the downside where we're getting this is an A, B, and a C. Now, looking at this slightly different, this was talking about that possibility that we could complete into this high here, and what we're looking for here is the potential of either having A, B, C down here, or if we do see a bigger 5-wave move past this 28,228, we could actually align with having a bigger 5-wave structure off of these highs. So we need to be careful Invalidation of this comes by crossing this 31,045. That would be of this yellow count. And then invalidation of this C wave to the downside comes by crossing this 31,513 level. So really, if we are looking at this, we want to say that, you know, what we could be starting to form here is that this is a 5-wave move down. Like I said, we can count this in a couple of ways. This becomes a wave 2 to the upside here, where we are looking for this 30,860, really as sort of the higher end of this as a retracement. We have come up into this 50% level already, and what we're looking for here is that potentially price could move to the downside in a 5-wave structure, though we'd only get confirmation of this by crossing this 29,302. So that's going to be our confirmation for this idea of getting a bigger breakdown here. And if we are looking at this as a bigger breakdown into these lower levels here, if we do hit this 28,228, we have that possibility of that bigger fourth and a fifth. Now, if we did get something along those lines, this would align with the idea of something like a bigger flat correction here, though the C wave would have been very extended if this is the case, but this could actually look to bring us back down into some of these key levels here, this 50% to this 382, which is a typical zone that we look for a flat correction. So that's this 28,693 to this 27,905 as a possible target. So keeping an eye on that. If we do actually get this 5-wave move to the downside, though, we need to be careful, because if we only get a 3-wave structure to the upside, then we could actually be looking for this higher time frame idea here, where we are still looking at that possibility that from further back here, we have this whole move as a bigger W, X, and a Y, where this is our W, this is our X wave up into these highs. And if we get this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, this could align with this being a flat correction. Alternatively, if we do get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 here, 3 waves up, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This would align with this idea of this bigger W, X, and a Y. So still looking out for that possibility of coming down towards this 26,205. But as well as that, we do have 28K as this 0.618 in this instance, which will be a very interesting area to actually see if price reacts, not only because of this count, but because of the fact that within the bullish count here, we are also sitting between that that 50% here and that 382 if we do move into that zone. So it's going to be very interesting to see how price reacts at these levels. Looking at the daily CPR here, what we can see is prices managed to regain these central lines. Now, if we do continue to hold these lines, which are sitting here towards this 30,502 to this 30,435, price could actually start to be gravitated back up towards this S1 line, which is sitting here at this 30,983. If we are looking at that bullish case and we're looking to push to the upside one more time here, what we could actually be looking for is targeting out this 31,564, this level here of this 32,84, and we do have this higher zone here of this 32,662. So that would align with that idea of that impulse to the upside. If, however, we start to lose these lines and we start to break down from this zone, what we could actually see is price could be gravitated towards this 29,892. We have 29,371, 28,799, and this level here of this 28,278 as possible downside targets for today. What we can see here as well is that these lines are very tightly spread. This is normally indicative of volatility, so I would be careful of that today. Potentially we could see some volatility come in. Now, if we just change us over onto the weekly, what we can see is that we are back in these weekly CPR lines here. We did move above these, and now we've actually managed to hold this lower line. If we continue to actually climb through these and potentially hold these levels, what we could see is price could get gravitated towards this 31,209. We have this upside target of this 32,248, and this target here of this 33K as potential targets for this week. Now, price can always move through these levels and also not reach these levels, so we need to just be aware of that. These are just potential pivot points within the market. Now, if we do see that idea where we start to break down either as an ABC, where we push down towards 29,404, or alternatively that idea of a bigger impulse, we could see these lower ranges get tested. This 28,653 would be the next one, and this 27,601 throughout the period of this week. So going to be keeping an eye on this. If we continue to push to the downside, these targets could be particularly interesting here. Moving over onto the monthly, we are still above these central CPR lines here. So I'm just being mindful that, you know, as long as we are above these, potentially we can see price get gravitated towards this area here of this 33K, which would be our S1 line. We do have this 35,533 and this 39,611 as potential upside targets. As well as that, we need to be aware that if we're looking at this idea of this bigger corrective move, if we fail to hold this 29,677, we do have potential to find support at this 28,884 and this lower range here of this 28,133. If, however, we start to lose these zones, then potentially we could come back here and look to retest this channel and this zone here of this 26,378. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on these. If we do start to break down, lower down, we also do have this level here of this 22,251 and this 19,696 as potential targets for this month. So at the moment, this is strong, the fact we're above this, but we'll have to see whether we can continue to maintain above these central lines. If we start to lose these, then it becomes likely we're going to test some of these lower levels. Okay, so I'm going to leave the video there. I hope you found it useful. If you did, please smash the like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, turn on those bell notifications so you never miss a video, and leave us some feedback down below. Also in the description, you'll find a link to the Discord. Come check it out. It's free to join. Everyone have a great day. We'll see you in the next one. Take care.